The Basic Law Committee's Deputy Director says there are valid grounds to outlaw a pro-Hong Kong independence party. And President Xi Jinping in Senegal at the start of a visit to Africa.
Hello and a very good evening. Deputy Director of the Basic Law Committee, Maria Tam, says there are valid grounds for the government's plan to outlaw the Hong Kong National Party. She also calls this a test case in efforts to stop the growing activities of pro-Hong Kong independence groups. Meanwhile, the convener of the Hong Kong National Party made a public appearance today, arguing that speeches made by someone should not be considered as substantive actions. More details now from Caleb Long.
I think there is no rule of law in Hong Kong, only rule by law.
The convener of the Hong Kong National Party made his first public appearance 5 days after the security chief said the group could be banned. John Lee said a society's officer in the police force asked him to outlaw the pro-independence group, citing a breach of the society's ordinance regarding the interests of national security.
The United Nations has stated that this ordinance is against the human rights abuse. Doesn't mean that the government prosecute me through that ordinance is equal to rule of law. It's just rule by law.
Yet a core member of the Basic Law Committee said the possible banning of the National Party has nothing to do with undermining freedom of speech.
If the society has been step by step moving towards achieving a stated aim of Hong Kong independence, then you have to look at not only what they say, but also what they do.
Tam listed examples of the party's substantive actions to promote independence, such as handing out pamphlets at schools and connecting with similar organizations overseas. She sees this as a test case of using existing laws to maintain social order and national security. Hong Kong has yet to enact controversial laws on national security as required by Article 23 of the Basic Law. Caleb Low, TVB News.
A C-section procedure at Tuen Mun Hospital is causing concerns. Incisions weren't just made on the mother, but also her baby. Health Chief Sophia Chan didn't say if human error was involved. Neither did Tuen Mun Hospital, but it confirmed the 2-centimetre-long cut on a boy's head was caused by a caesarean section procedure roughly 2 weeks ago. The hospital sees the wound as a known surgical risk.
The injury to the presenting part, the baby's head, is around 1 to 2% in all the caesarean section. And the risk is a little bit higher if the caesarean section is under an emergency situation. To the extent that it cut into the scalp and then it need bleeding, and then you need to call the neurosurgery to stop the bleeding or repair the wound. That is not that common.
The newborn has since received stitches and is said to be healing well. Without revealing how deep the cut is, Tuen Mun Hospital only stressed there's no serious damage to the baby's skull and brain tissues. The public hospital apologized to the family for troubles and concerns caused.
US President Donald Trump has denied any wrongdoing a day after reports that his one-time personal attorney secretly recorded their discussion about buying the rights to a story of a former Playboy model. The woman, Karen McDougal, claimed she had an affair with Trump. The recording was part of a large collection of documents and electronic records seized earlier this year by federal authorities from Michael Cohen, Trump's former attorney. In a tweet, Trump called such taping totally unheard of and perhaps illegal. Trump's current attorney, Rudy Giuliani, said Cohen recorded a conversation with Trump 2 months before the 2016 election. Giuliani said the potential transaction Cohen was talking about on the tape never took place.
We have now heard from a survivor of that deadly boat accident in the US state of Missouri. The vessel capsized in choppy waters, killing 17 people, including 9 members of her family. Peter Cavales has this story.
Fighting back tears, Tia Coleman described the harrowing moment before the boat she was on capsized.
I said, Lord, please, let me get to my babies. I gotta get to my babies. I gotta get to my babies.
She lost her partner, 2 sons, a 1-year-old daughter, and several in-laws.
I lost 9 people. I lost my husband, he would have killed a rock over anybody, over my family. He was so loving to remember my babies.
But it didn't have to be that way. Coleman says that safety was not a priority.
The captain did say something about life jackets. He said, above you are your life jackets. There's 3 sizes. He said, I'm going to show you where they are, but you won't need them, so no need to worry. So we didn't grab them.
Authorities will now investigate to see what other safety measures were overlooked.
The real objective is going to be to find out what kind of information they had on board when they made the decision to go out. This was a squall that came up rather suddenly. There's a lot more for us to understand.
The safety of these types of amphibious boats is once again being questioned. Some critics believe they should be outlawed. Authorities hope to raise the boat out of the water by next week. Peter Corveos, TVB News.
President Xi Jinping has arrived in Africa on a 4-nation tour, seeking deeper military and economic ties. It's his first trip abroad since being appointed to a second term in March, with term limits removed. Beijing's bid to clinch its hold over the African continent comes amid an increasingly bitter trade war with the United States. Jeff Tang has the story.
China is already Africa's biggest trading partner, but an ongoing trade dispute with the United States means Beijing needs to find alternate revenue streams should its tariff war with the world's biggest economy get out of control. So President Xi Jinping decided to stop by the world's second most populous continent to bolster economic ties. The first stop on his itinerary was Senegal. Xi met with his Senegalese counterpart Macky Sall yesterday, and the pair later oversaw the signing of a slew of agreements. China is the West African nation's second biggest trading partner behind France, with bilateral trade surpassing $2 billion in 2016. Chinese firms have had a major hand in building recent Senegalese infrastructure, including sports stadiums in the capital Dakar, roads, a theatre, a national wrestling arena and a museum. Xi's visit highlights China's sweeping Belt and Road initiative that envisages linking Beijing to Africa, Europe and other parts of Asia via a network of ports, railways, power plants and economic zones. Beijing's active courtship of African nations does not sit well with Washington, even though it seems to show little interest in the continent. US officials have often warned African countries of the risk of putting themselves into debt to China, despite the obvious benefits of those high-profile infrastructure projects. Meanwhile, Washington is also highly critical of Beijing's growing military influence in the Asia-Pacific region and around the world. China opened its first military base in Africa last year in Djibouti. This month, the Horn of African nation launched a China-backed free trade zone, which it calls the biggest on the continent. Beijing also hosted dozens of African military officials this month for the first China-Africa Defense Forum. Xi's Senegal visit ends later today. It's the first leg of his African tour that will also see him visit Rwanda, Mauritius and South Africa. He'll attend a summit of BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa on Wednesday in Johannesburg. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
The International Monetary Fund has warned world economic leaders that the recent wave of trade tariffs would significantly harm global growth. The warning from the IMF comes less than 2 days after President Donald Trump threatened a major escalation in Washington's trade dispute with Beijing. The finance ministers and central bank chiefs representing the group of 20 most industrialized nations, or G20, were in Argentina with the threat of an international trade war looming like a dark shadow. Argentina is one of the world's most closed economies after a string of populist leaders implemented tariffs and restrictions on foreign capital to protect domestic industry. President Mauricio Macri has removed many of those barriers, and outside the summit venue, protesters gathered to demonstrate against his economic policies, as well as the presence of the IMF, which has been working with Argentina to help it restructure its economy. Inside the venue, IMF boss Christine Lagarde warned the trade spats accelerated by the administration of US President Donald Trump could significantly harm the global economy.
It certainly indicates the impact that it would have on GDP, which in the worst case scenario, under current measures and not taking into account most recent announcement, is in the range of 0.5% of GDP on a global basis.
In the briefing note prepared for G20 ministers, the IMF said global growth may peak at 3.9% in 2018 and 2019, while downside risks have increased due to the growing trade conflict. Long simmering trade tensions have burst into the open in recent months, with the United States and China slapping tariffs on $34 billion worth of each other's goods so far. And on Friday, Trump threatened tariffs on all $500 billion of Chinese export to America. Still, US Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who's at the Argentina summit, said he did not believe America's spat with its main trading partners, especially China, would keep the United States from achieving 3% growth this year.
Cuban lawmakers have approved the country's new cabinet named by President Miguel Diaz-Canel. Most of the ministers from Raul Castro's government were kept in place, except for the key post of economic reform. At the same time, the National Assembly received a proposed reform of Cuba's 1976 constitution that would reshape its government, courts and economy and pave the way for same-sex marriage. Still, it would maintain the Communist Party as the sole political force in the country. The charter will be put to a national referendum in the coming months before returning to the Assembly.
And still to come on the news tonight. Tropical storm Ampil slams Shanghai, disrupting the city's air, sea and land traffic.
去旅行啫，唔一定要身水身汗嘅，你都可以成為旅遊達人。只要用永安旅遊 App， 機票、酒店自由行隨時 book， 選擇又多，酒店好多時都可以揀免費取消，仲有底價保證添。而家用永安旅遊 App 首次預訂滿800，仲會即減100。飛定唔飛？用永安旅遊 App 自抵飛。
Welcome back to TVB News. In Shanghai, authorities relocated around 200,000 people near coastal areas as another typhoon approaches. Here's Kane Chu on how the storm has also crippled the city's air, sea and land traffic.
Gusty winds, crashing waves, and rising sea levels in Shanghai's Jinshan district this morning. Heavy rain pounded Pudong district and Chongmin Island, where some areas recorded 110 millimeters of rainfall. Local authorities have since redirected some 200,000 people.
要有出色嘅表現，除咗天分同埋努力之外，背後嘅團隊都好重要㗎。學車考牌，我會揀俾到信心我嘅駕駛學校。喺呢度有唔同車輛保中及企業安全駕駛課程，適合初學者嘅模擬駕駛課程。考試前仲有由前駕駛考試組高層分析 One Take Pass 秘技，減3分駕駛改進課程，免試換領中國車牌，專業安心，俾到你信心，你見駕駛學校。
To safety. According to China News Service, Tropical Storm Ampil is the third storm since 1949 to enter Shanghai directly. This halted the operation of all ferries commuting between downtown Shanghai and Chongmin Island. Over 90,000 travelers scheduled to take high-speed trains were also affected as the Shanghai Hongqiao railway station closed its doors. More than 520 flights could be cancelled at Shanghai's two main airports, Hongqiao International and Pudong. That's why some tourists departing for Shanghai are still stuck in Hong Kong. This mainlander said her flight's been delayed for more than 5 hours. She has been wandering around the airport or at cafes to kill time. The Hong Kong Airport Authority said up until 6 o'clock this evening, a total of 25 Shanghai flights have been cancelled. 27 more have been delayed. Kena Chu, TVB News.
Authorities in Hong Kong and Shenzhen have arrested 9 more people in connection with a $23 million jewelry shop robbery in Tsim Sha Tsui early this month. That's brought the total number of arrests to 13. Meanwhile, Hong Kong police also nabbed 4 more suspects last week. That's in addition to 4 people previously arrested for their alleged involvement in the robbery at a watch and jewelry shop on Hai Phong Road.
Meanwhile, the police are in pursuit of 3 men who assaulted and robbed a man in Lok Ma Chau. The police received a report at around 9 a.m. that a 52-year-old man was attacked by 3 hammer-wielding men at a Lok Ma Chau parking lot. The attackers, who were wearing masks, also robbed the victim of 800,000 renminbi. The victim sustained head injuries and was taken to North District Hospital for treatment.
Young people are spending more time online, in some cases more than 9 hours a day. Pinky Wong spoke to some of them, but did so offline.
The student is on her smartphone whenever possible.
Whenever I have free time, I will use it. Because when I feel so tired, and especially my hand, I feel sore, I will lose my energy to do anything else, and I just want to sleep after using the social media.
The Hong Kong Pediatric Society and the Hong Kong Pediatric Foundation surveyed some 2,000 young people aged between 9 and 18. More than 90% of respondents use social media. More than a third even spend over 9 hours online a day.
I think it is true that I think nowadays in Hong Kong, I think the adolescent, they may not get enough attention or even love from the real world. This is why they will rely on those what we call the online image and online support.
The group said it's time for the government to keep up with the latest social media trend and be more aware of any potential risk on child development.
That's because the government's recently established Commission on Children has insufficient power to influence teenagers, according to one expert.
Advisory by itself is not enough, totally not at all.
Experts also advise that parents to continue guiding their kids when they enter secondary school on sensible online and social media habits. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
A photograph of a smiling Prince George has been released by his parents, Britain's Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. The latest photo of the toddler prince was released to coincide with his 5th birthday today. The photo was taken in London shortly after the christening of his baby brother Prince Louis on July 9th. And that's the news.